Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. This is your host, Critical Failure. And I feel like our levels are a little bit high right now. Let's see if I can fix that. Oh, there we go. Boys and girls. Okay, so we're keeping the ball rolling with chipmusic.org. I recently had a departure from Battle of the Bits to find something that felt a little bit more like core chiptunes. You might remember last week we featured a lot of 8-bit Nintendo music, who I didn't know he was still making music, and apparently he still is a lot, because a new song from him came out today that we're going to listen to later. But first, we've got Plug Suit Required from Acid Void. No plug suit required. Acid Void? Acid Void. This is from chipmusic.org. So it's another free track if you want to drop by and pick up an MP3, tell them you heard them on TCR. Stick with us. All right, we're checking the... Oh, Jesus. I already can't keep a straight face. Oh, my gosh. Okay, it's time for a bedtime story. Some followings from ChatGPT. I think I'm going to keep the prompt a secret until the end. Bear with me. Once upon a time in the Mushroom Kingdom, Mario and Luigi were enjoying a peaceful day until they received an urgent message from Princess Peach. She had been captured by the nefarious Bowser once again, and the plumbers knew they had to spring into action. With their trusty warp pipes, Mario and Luigi planned to reach Bowser's castle quickly. However, As they were about to jump into the pipes, a mysterious glitch in the space-time continuum occurred. The warp pipes malfunctioned, creating a swirling vortex which sucked the brothers in. To their surprise, Mario and Luigi found themselves in a completely different world. They looked around and discovered they were now in Jerry Seinfeld's... Hang on. They were in Jerry Seinfeld's apartment from the hit sitcom Seinfeld. Confused but determined, they decided to make the best of the situation. Just as they were trying to figure out how to get back to the Mushroom Kingdom, Jerry Seinfeld, George Costanza, and Elaine Bennis and Cosmo Kramer walked in. The Super Mario Brothers introduced themselves, and soon enough, they found themselves bonding over a shared love for Italian cuisine, deciding to put the rescue mission on hold. Deciding to put the rescue mission on hold, Mario and Luigi joined their new friends for a lunch of spaghetti and meatballs. Jerry cracked jokes, Kramer performed his signature entrances, and George shared his latest misadventures. Elaine, the ever-pragmatist, questioned the logic of their sudden appearance. As they enjoyed their unexpected lunch together, Mario and Luigi realized that sometimes the most unexpected detours in life can lead to memorable experiences. Eventually, the space-time glitch corrected itself and the brothers bid farewell to their newfound Seinfeld friends, promising to return if they ever needed a good laugh. With a warp pipe that finally cooperated, Mario and Luigi made their way back to the Mushroom Kingdom. They resumed their mission to rescue the Princess Peach, but lunch with the Seinfeld cast remained a fond memory, reminding them that even heroes deserve a break from time to time. And so, with a mix of laughter and adventure, the tale of Mario and Luigi's unexpected encounter with Seinfeld came to an end. So what happened to the princess? Did she die? No, the princess did not meet a tragic fate. As Mario and Luigi returned from their lunchtime adventure with the Seinfeld cast, they refocused on their mission to rescue the Princess Peach from Bowser's clutches. Upon reaching Bowser's castle, the heroic plumbers faced various challenges, defeated enemies, navigated treacherous obstacles, and in the end, successfully rescued the princess. The princess, grateful for Mario and Luigi's bravery, thanked them and expressed her relief at being free from captivity. With the Mushroom Kingdom safe once more, the trio celebrated their victory, and Mario and Luigi could finally enjoy some well-deserved rest after their unexpected detour in the Seinfeld universe. So rest assured, Princess Peach emerged from an ordeal unharmed, and the Mushroom Kingdom lived happily ever after.
The end. That is the end.
All right. That aside, we got a couple of very brief van casts. So with that, let's go to the van.
Morning, everybody. We're van casting. It's your boy CF. We are in the van. It is 9:36 a.m. 39 degrees outside. Here in Maryland, about a week ago, not that long ago, a few days back, had a good bit of snow. So right now there's the remnants of about 5 inches of snow on the ground, but the roads are really clear. It's a really nice morning, to be honest, because we didn't have snow like this for several years. And yesterday the kids got to go outside and make forts in the snow, and it was a great time. All right, so video games. Speaking of things that haven't happened in a while, I reinstalled the Halo Master Chief Collection, which, by the way, the amount of content that's in this thing that I got for whatever I paid for, it was like $7 or something very, very cheap, is incredible. The last time I loaded it up, I played all the way through Halo 1 and 2, which I had never done before. This is when I first played it. I don't know how long ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, something like that. But it was on my old machine. It was before I got the new machine. So when I got to Halo 3, I reached a point where it started to chug a little bit. Like, I could still play it, but it was dropping frames, and I just decided to hold off. I decided to go to other things. Well, I loaded up the Master Chief Collection, and all the clouds, all the saves are stored in the clouds, so I was able to resume my Halo 3 game, and I knocked it out, man. Played Halo 3 all the way to the end. Good game. If we want to get into ticky-tack complaints, Halo 3 has this thing it does where it'll slow you to a stop so that the storyline can talk over the game. And I hated that, but overall, it's a good game. And then last night, this is the point I'm making, I loaded up for the first time Halo 3 ODST. Now, I remember when this game came out, but I had never played it before. And I remember people being upset about it, but I thought that people were upset because it was essentially like an expansion for Halo 3 rather than its own game. And it was supposed to be like really short versus like a main series Halo game can be like, I don't know, 10 hours or something. It can be, it has some meat to it, But, I played it, and you don't play as Master Chief. At least not in the first, hour or whatever I went through. I was like, what? I don't get to be Master Chief? Okay. It doesn't really... I mean, it's just a Rudy Tooty point and shooty, so what does it really matter? Except that I don't have, like, the cool, like, shield regen. So I was like, oh, okay. Right, so now the stages are non-linear. So I'm getting lost more and and dying more. I'm gonna come out and say it. I'm not great at video games. I'm dying more. I was a little bit disappointed. I'm gonna give it. I'm not ready to give up on it yet because I like the idea of playing through the entire series, but I don't know. I'm going to give it another try before I set it aside. We'll see. Maybe it's not so bad. Hang on a second here. All right, boys and girls. I think that's about it from me. I'm going to try Halo ODST one more time, and I'll get back with you when I have an updated opinion. It surprises me how long ago this game came out. Like, I remember, I think Gooch and the Douchebag were talking about it, and they've been gone since 2010. So, I don't know. I'll have to check some release dates. But I'll get back with you, and I'll see you back in the studio. Back in the studio here on TCR, we're going to return to the well with chipmusic.org. This is from Kyle Kalayo. It's Dissonant. It's an LSDJ track here on Tiger Claw Radio. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Big thanks to the Patreon sponsors. They are EmeraldRangers.com. They are Tacmo Balls. They are Darabka. Thank you guys so much for keeping the boat floating in the ocean, in motion. And I hope you're enjoying the party. Story time, ladies and gentlemen. Piggybacking on last week, we talked about I was going to go through stories of video games as a child. And the reason I love doing this is because this is something that you can't get on Wikipedia, right? These are the context things, people who are actually around, back in those days talking about what it was like. Personally, I love these kinds of stories from people who are around in like the 70s and stuff, talking about, watching Buck Rogers and things like that. So last week we talked about Dragon Warrior 3. This time let's talk about playing computer games on my dad's luggable. Now in this circle, I think it's just me and I was about to say not many of us like DOS games, but that's not fair. Hemrock, I know is big into Jetpack. That's a DOS game amongst others. And then we have Sean, who's a big computer guy. You know, some of us really like the old DOS games, but so you might remember last week we talked about computer games being banned. But that there was a point in my older days where that sort of went away a little bit. My dad had a luggable computer, which I didn't know that term then, but it was a portable PC, like IBM compatible computer from the 80s, and it predated laptops. So instead of a laptop, what it was a suitcase, right? Like a really heavy suitcase. Oh my Lord. And you would put it on its side, and the bottom of the suitcase would come off, and the bottom of the suitcase would be a keyboard that would be wired in, and there you go. And the screen was a little tiny screen that would be in there and everything. Looking back, if you look up one of these, it's really impressive technology. It seems quaint these days, and I'm not gonna lie, it is. But as bulky as monitor hardware was in those days, and disk drives and all of the stuff that made up a computer, they're pretty sweet. I encountered them twice in my youth. My dad had one that, by the way, they had monochrome screens. At least every single one I've ever encountered. The ones I saw in my youth, and also you can always see them when you go to MagFest in the Computer Museum. They have at least one. Most of the time, like 2 or 3. But my dad's computer was green and black. So, all of the text would show up as like green, and then everywhere else was black. And the areas that were black, the parts of the monitor did not require electricity to light up. Therefore, on top of that, since it was all, what's the word? Command prompt based as opposed to Windows, it was all pre-Windows. Most of the time, all of the backgrounds to your games or whatever were black. Most of the time. So we had this machine that my dad kind of moved on from, and it was just in the stuff. And I got a hold of this luggable, and I made a little alcove underneath the stairs. Last week we talked about my dad's workbench. Not on the workbench, it was underneath the stairs. But this one was a little different. This wasn't like, I don't want my parents to know about it. This was just like, I have this old piece of equipment that no one in my family is using. I'm going to put it under the stairs. I think we even had a Super Nintendo at this point. And my brothers, the two that were young with me, would play the Super Nintendo. So I would just kind of like, because I was always the littlest, I had a really hard time waiting for a turn on whatever the video games were. So I adopted this thing, and my dad also had a good amount of computer games, like not super in-depth ones, but he had Wizardry. He had a good number of Electronic Arts games, which, brace yourself, it's weird to think of it now, but Electronic Arts in the 80s was an amazing company. Their video games came, like in the 5.25-inch floppy days, they came in album covers, presumably because they wanted to treat their devs like rock stars. And we had a number of them. We had Pinball Construction Set, we had Adventure Construction Set, we had a game called Amnesia, which was a text-based game. We had a game called Archon, which I could never get running, but now it's on Steam. We had a game called Arctic Fox, which I also never got running, and I don't think it's on Steam, but you can get that one on any corner abandonware site. It was great. It was great. And so I would play this luggable, and the second time I came across one is I had a friend whose name was Tutu, who lived like 2 blocks away. And I remember his dad had 2 luggables, and he was getting rid of them. And when I say getting rid of them, I don't mean he was looking for a buyer. I mean he put these things on the curb for the trash man to pick up. And I looked at them with my youthful eyes in the 90s, and I was like, no, this is not how you treat. I might have even still had access to my dad's luggable, but they would only let me take one of them. They wouldn't let me take 2, because they were like, kid, you don't. He was like generally concerned for me becoming a computer pack rat, which is a legitimate concern. So I got his luggable, and I remember less of this one because my dad's, like, it was my dad's. He was able to tell me about it. He told me there was some sort of problem with the memory, which is the reason why he didn't maintain it, or whatever. But this one, what I distinctly remember is that the monitor, still monochrome, instead of being green and black, it was orange and black. So I had a kid who lived on the opposite side of the block as me named Albert. And Albert used to walk by my house on the way to the bus stop. So this must have been junior high. And I distinctly remember there were a couple instances he'd walk by my house and he'd come in, like early enough, he'd come in and chill for just like a couple of minutes. And I talked about those EA games, how they used to be in album covers. Well, one of the ones we had was Marble Madness. And Marble Madness for the IBM on the 5.25-inch floppy disk. If you take a look at that version and you compare it to like the NES version, it's a huge downgrade. But I didn't think so at the time. I thought it was magic. And one of the things that I remember the most about Marble Madness was that controlling the marble was not done with the arrow keys, which I thought was absolutely infuriating. But I figured it out anyway. And I can't remember what the controls were because it's been too many years. But it was one of those things where it was like, it was pre-WASD by a lot of years. So it was like E and SDX or something like that. And they set it up so that there were 2 sets of controls for the 2 separate marbles on the same keyboard. Something that you would look at today and be like, nobody's ever going to play Marble Madness with 2 people on the same keyboard. Well, me and Albert did. Me and Albert played Marble Madness on one of these luggables in the basement, in my unfinished basement, for about 10 minutes. Prior to going to the bus stop in junior high. And it's one of the fondest memories I have. For whatever reason, this particular memory is one of the fondest memories I have of playing on those old luggables and playing PC games in my basement. So there you go. The luggables are long gone. They were purged at one point when my parents were trying to get rid of video games. But I don't think, I'm trying to remember if Marble Madness is still down there or not. Probably not. I know a number of those games, like the discs are gone because my dad like collected them and put them in a box and the box got thrown out, but the old album covers are still there. Not 100% sure. But there you go. There's Marble Madness. When I got to play it later on, this is before I ever played it on the NES. So when I played it on the NES and I was able to use a controller with like a reasonable D-pad, something that made logical sense, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was able to play with 2 players, but we didn't have to crush on a keyboard. I was like, even better. Strangely enough, though, when I played the NES version, I could never get as far as I could on that IBM version because there was something about the physics that was just slightly different. I mean, it was a port, it wasn't like a direct drag and drop from one console to another, one platform to another. No, they had to rebuild the game from the ground up. That's the way ports worked in those days. We didn't have code portability like we do now. So there you go. And I dearly miss those luggables, and if I ever saw one, I would probably love to own it and have nowhere to put it. and I'm sure they're mega expensive these days. So there you go. That's my story about playing video games as a kid for this week. I thought this might be fun. I've been messing around with ChatGPT with the whole bedtime thing, bedtime story thing, and I had this idea to see what it is and isn't familiar with. So the ChatGPT that I have access to is ChatGPT 3.5. That's the free one, right? So if you want to pay $20 a month, you get bumped up to version 4, which has image generation and all that stuff. But most importantly, GPT 3.5 is capped at 2022. January 2022 is the bookend for everything it knows. So I had this idea. Let's see which of us in the group it is and isn't familiar with. So I started with the Retro League because the Retro League had the most cultural notoriety, I think, within our group. There were a lot of articles when they closed down. People were big fans and stuff. So I asked it, are you familiar with a podcast called The Retro League? And this is what it said. Yes, I'm familiar with the Retro League podcast. It's a podcast that discusses retro gaming, includes classic video games, gaming consoles, and nostalgic memories related to gaming culture. The hosts often share experiences with old school games and provide insights into the world of retro gaming. If you have any specific questions or topics you'd like to know more about regarding the Retro League, feel free to ask. Okay, so I asked, who were the hosts of the Retro League? As of my last knowledge, update in... Oh, geez, screwed that up. All right. Can we read now? Let's try it. As of my last knowledge update in January 2022, the hosts of the Retro League podcast were Hughes Johnson and we're going to say Jungle Rat Rob because what I think it writes here is his actual name, and I'm not sure if he wants me to put that out here. Keep in mind that podcast lineups can change, so it's a good idea to check the latest information on the official website or other reliable sources. And that's about the best I got. I sort of prompted it for some history. I asked it if there were any other former hosts that it knew about, and it said, no, I don't know. So you don't know the original lineup? No, I don't know. Is the Retro League still around? No, I don't know. Are you familiar with the former host Hemrock? No, I don't know. That's as much as I was able to get. But I was surprised because that's a good bit. This is where I thought it sort of went off the rails. I was expecting to get nothing, but I asked it about Tiger Claw Radio. Are you familiar with a podcast called Tiger Claw Radio? Yes, Tiger Claw Radio is a podcast that focuses on video games, music, and general pop culture. It's hosted by the musician and gamer Nitro Game Injection, NGI in parentheses. The podcast often features discussions about gaming news, retro games, music remixes, and other related topics. If you have any questions or if there's anything specific you'd like to know about Tiger Claw Radio, feel free to ask. Wow, Nitro Game Injection. So my instinct was they must be talking about another, podcast that's real. Because apart from NGI being the host, it's a pretty spot on description. Where can I find Tiger Claw Radio? I don't know. And then I asked it if it knew about Tiger Claw TV. I don't know. And that's as far as it got. But man, Nitro Game Injection. All right. Well, this is Nitro Game Injection. Signing off, I guess. And with that, let's go back to the van. We're doing the van casting. All right. Give me a second while I pull out here. Man, it is a foggy morning in Maryland today. Very, very foggy. Okay, so let's talk about Halo ODST for just a minute. I mentioned previously that I gave it a shot and I wasn't really getting down with it. But I played it a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And then it clicked. I still don't think it's as good as the other Halo games. This is the fourth Halo game that I've played in my run. Haven't made it to Halo 4, 1, 2, 3, and then ODST. I didn't play Reach. Most people play Reach first. It's at the top of the list, but I haven't played Reach yet. So of the 4 games that I've played, this is by far the weakest, but still a very good game. You walk around in a city at night looking, sort of like almost like the hub level, How you remember how Quake had that? It had the hub level where you'd pick episodes. You look for the clue, and then the clue triggers a level. And then there you go. Traditional Halo action ensues, minus Master Chief and Cortana. So not bad, but I miss Master Chief and Cortana. But it's good enough that I'm gonna finish the game. I'm at chapter 8 out of 11, so yeah, I'll knock that right out. And then I haven't decided if I'm gonna move on to Halo 4 yet next, or Halo Reach, but I'm knocking those games out, man. I'm having a good time with the old Master Chef collection. Maybe Halo 4 would be a good idea. My only problem with Halo is that, like, they're good-looking games, but I kind of want to play something that's going to flex my new computer, you know? And I guess it does to some extent, but I don't know. I feel like the later games in the franchise... Oh, golly, sorry. Later games in the franchise might do that a little bit better. But, I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? And with that, boys and girls, it is time to return to the studio. I'll see you there. Okay, before we shift gears, next thing I have lined up is we got a bunch of stuff in the fail bag that's going to be really fun to dig through. But I have one more chiptune to play, and I know this is chiptune number 3, right? It's been years since we've been this chiptune heavy, but I've really been enjoying chipmusic.org. Again, who should submit a new song today? But again, 8-bit Nintendo, knocking them dead. And this is called White Clouds in a Blue Sky. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Okay, so I'm going to put the links to the 3 tracks that we've heard today over on the Discord if you want to jump across and get MP3s for them. And again, by all means, do leave a comment there and let them know you heard them on TCR. Well, all right, gang. Let's take a look. Switching gears, heading over to the Fail Mag and reading the actual letters and comments and whatnot for the show over on emeraldrangers.com where the new episodes are posted. Got no comments this week. No comment, counselor. So we head over to Discord. And on Discord, we have the Failbag channel, which is where I think most of the action happens right now. He says, I was there when you bought the vinyl for Winter Chip. I believe it was MagFest 2019. I agree with you that Battle of the Bits is different than good old 8BC. I thought your most unpopular gaming opinion was that Tekken 3 was just okay. All right, a couple things here. So the MagFest 2019, whatever it was we went to where I bought those records, that was a different thing. That was, I believe, the Chipocrit album and some other stuff. The Battle of the Bits thing was a 45 that I actually just recently ordered off the internet because it was a 45. They're smaller, less expensive than LPs. It's an old album. The Winter Chip one is ages old, but the record that goes along with it is rather new, and it's like the worst 4 tracks off of Winter Chip, which I think is funny. Most unpopular opinion being Tekken 3 was just okay. Yeah, I would say that's fair. Not a huge Tekken fan. I think it's pretty good, but I seem to be the only one, especially when it comes to like Tekken 3. That's like Tekken in its heyday, when Tekken was a big deal. The tail end of the PS1 era. I found a GBA SP in the gutter story. It's a TCR classic. that Chat GPT storytime stuff was good. Good stuff. Thanks, man. The GBA in the gutter thing deserves its own YouTube video. That's one I definitely should tell in detail in YouTube, and then retire forever. Put it out there in the Ethernet, one of those things that will outlive me in time. And he says, food for thought. And he has a video. It says, one of these Game Boys contains no Nintendo parts. And he says, also shows, I think you might fancy this portable music tracker for the V90. All right. And he says, Audio Wanderer's music tracker on a GBA SP. Okay, let's pause this recording so I can watch these 2 videos so I can comment on them. Yes, this is referring to Little GP Tracker, which is a sample-based tracker that's developed to look and feel a lot like LSDJ. And this video is particularly about getting that on the V90. Now, I've tried this thing, when I first started messing with these open Dingix powered handhelds, that was one of the things I tried. It shows up early on the list. And of all the machines I have, the only one I've actually been able to get it working on was the RG300, which is a very old vertical form factor handheld, which I think you can get for like $40 or something like that. I did not know that it worked on the V90. I've actually tried to get it working on the V90 and without much success. So watching this video, it looks like he did some tweaking to make it work now. I'm familiar with that tracker. I like it because it's sample based, right? So you can actually put like wave files of boom bap in there and then adjust it that way, as opposed to classic LSDJ. You're restricted to whatever the Game Boy sound chip can produce. Really neat video. Mess with it, dude, if you haven't. It's good stuff. One of the problems with LSDJ is that it's all like shortcut commands using select and another key. So the actual LSDJ for Game Boy, it becomes very difficult to run on a handheld, one of these emulation handhelds. The game will boot just fine because, of course, it's just a Game Boy game. But the problem is once you press select and hold it down and try and change pages, whatever crazy whatever crazy shortcut keys that your emulator has are going to kick in, and it's going to stop it from working. And that's what happens on all machines that I tried that thing on. So that reason alone, because LSDJ is kind of crippled on those things, that makes this program really worth checking out. Okay, I watched the other video as well, which, give me a second, I got to navigate back to it. Tiger Claw Media fan back. Yeah, here we go. One of these Game Boys contains no Nintendo parts. Pretty sweet. There is a kit you can buy. I've already forgotten what it's called, but, a Nintendo GBA clone that you buy in parts and assemble. Apparently it's the PCB and then the screen, and you just stick it together and plug it in. And you have a really nice GBA clone. One of the questions the guy asked was, why do I have to assemble this? I think I might be able to answer that. Because the way they sell it now, in parts, you can't legally say that they're selling you one of these GBA unit or GBC units. They're selling you their own proprietary motherboard, circuit board, and you're doing with it whatever you see fit, which just so happens to be putting it together in the way it was meant to be. Legally, they can't say that they're selling Game Boy Colors. I assume that that's what's going on. Of course, it could be more complicated than that. But this is really sweet looking. Typically, I usually think it's going to be big money to get. You take an original Game Boy Color and you mod it so that the screen lights up. It's either going to be big money or there's going to be risk involved in having to learn how to do it yourself. Because of that, I just never took the plunge. I have two original Game Boy Colors. One is the Atomic Purple and the other is an actual purple one. And the Atomic Purple one's my baby. Works great. I revisit that thing all the time. And the actual purple one, the battery back falls off. A couple of the buttons don't respond very well. That thing has been in need of some love for a real long time. So watching this video, for one thing, inspired me to take care of that Game Boy. I looked it up on Amazon and eBay and just did some shopping. And $15, I can get myself a kit with a nice, slick replacement case, replacement buttons, replacement. Everything, even with the proprietary screwdrivers to do it. I have the screwdrivers because I intended to do this like a long time ago and then just shelved the project. But now my kids are getting older. Especially my daughter really likes Game Boy Color. She likes to collect the old Game Boy cartridges because I had several that were just like whatever. And she's like, "Can I have them, Dad?" I was like, "Of course, go for it." So she's got her like multi-cart from AliExpress that I bought all the kids. And then she's got like a handful of like weird Japanese cartridges that I just like happened across in my travels. And so she's got this little box of these games. It's like she's got to have something to play it on, man. So I'm thinking I might restore this Game Boy Color that I have, and I'm considering buying one of these because it's a price investment. This thing, it looks like it's going to be about $100. It's the guy in the video said it's like 70 or 80 or something for the circuit board. And anytime you see one of these videos, the price of the thing, whatever it may be, is always more than they say in the video. It just is. Video generates some excitement. They try and capitalize. Price goes up a little bit. So I'm thinking I might restore my Game Boy Color, and if that generates interest, then hey, let's get one of these where the screen lights up, but it still has that ultraviolet sensor, so that we can like do card pop in Pokemon trading card game or something like that. So that's really cool that exists. Big props. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention, I want to take a second to look at a video. This is over on is this memes? We were talking yesterday. I just happened to catch Hemrock on when he was posting. He's posting some stuff on the High Score channel. He was playing, what was it? Exerion, which is a Famicom game I'd never heard of. And he's like, hey, here's a High Score in case anybody wants to play this. I looked it up. Cart was cheap. Ordered my copy of a cart. When it shows up, I'll go head to head. It's pretty great that I happened to catch him online. But he also started talking A little bit about Translate. He flipped the cartridge over, took a picture of it. Go Google Translate, and he used the Translate to do the rudimentary, often flawed, but still very cool real-time translate that Google can do. And I like Google Translate, man. I've had a lot of success with that. With the Translate app where you get the camera on your phone and you can point it at things. I pointed at my CRT screen when I'm playing Japanese games when they help me navigate menus, to the point where I'm learning the original RPG Maker, RPG Sukuru for the Super Nintendo, using that thing, because the text inputs in the original RPG Maker, even though it's a Japanese only game, you can input text in English. That means if you know what you're clicking on, you can still make an English playable game in it, which is ridiculous, but that's something I want to show off in the future. Anyway, what was the thing? Hold on a second. I got to pause this so I can find the thing that he pointed out, because it looked wonderful. Wonderful indeed. Okay. Since you mentioned Google Translator in the high score thread, I figured I'd show you Universal Game Translator. Oh dear, this is going to be crazy. I'm going to pause this so I can watch this video. Be right back. Well, it's about what I said it would be. It's embedded in RetroArch, which is pretty sweet, and it involves signing up for an online service, which no problem. I feel like an urgency to throw in and work on this a little bit, because these online services don't stick around forever. Case in point, do you remember a long time ago when CDs were CDs were like a viable music format still? And it was like at the tail end of that era where CDRs had already come around. So you'd put your CD into the computer to rip it and turn it into MP3s. And there was a database. I can't remember what it was called, but there was some database that all of the ripper programs would bounce, and it would get the name of whatever CD you put in there. Well, that database has since gone down. And it was never like a for-profit thing. It just went down because they were like, we're going to discontinue services. These services don't last forever. They don't. So I want to check this thing out and see if I can figure out these old RPG Maker programs. While the getting's still good. Good news is, because it's RetroArch, excuse me, it doesn't seem like it's restricted to a particular platform. As long as it's supported by RetroArch, you should be fine, which includes, like PS1 and all that stuff. And RPG Maker, since that's what I'm trying to translate, that's on everything. It's on everything. I found out recently that there was a version of RPG Maker that was released for the Sega Saturn. I had no idea. So that's really cool, man. I appreciate you posting that. And if that sounds interesting, you can head over to the Tiger Claw Radio Discord. Check it out in the chat channel. Well, with that, that's episode 473 of Tiger Claw Radio. Whatever it is you guys got going on in your lives, I really hope it goes well for you. I'm rooting for you. I'll see you next week.